Hey, it's Matt, your average gamer, and for this one, we're going to be going over 5 of the best posture breaking or poise breaking builds in Elden Ring. This is going to be ridiculously powerful and hopefully super helpful. These are in a little bit of an order. The best 2 are definitely the last 2, and the first one that I'm going to show you guys is Unsheathe, which does 30 poise damage using the charged attack on the Ash of War. Unsheathe is also really powerful because you can put it on a katana and then you have that innate bleed. You can throw Blood Flame Blade on top of that and then you can get around 80 or 90 bleed on those charged hits. And again, 30 posture damage on each charged hit. Accumulates fast, as you saw the posture break there. That's kind of going to be the theme of this video in general. And we're going to go over stats, equipment, everything that you need to know for this build. Let's start with equipment here. Equipment, I had the Nagakiba with Unsheathe on it, and then I was using Blood Flame Blade. We have any seal will do. We got a random set of armor on. We have the Dagger Talisman, Shard of Alexander, Dragon Crest Great Shield Talisman, Ritual Swords Talisman, and then we have the Faith tier, and then we also have Stance Breaking tier as well. Let's get into stats for this one. For stats, this is primarily a dexterity build. You're going to put it on Keen Affinity if you're using anything as far as the Nagakibas or the starting katana, and then you can throw Unsheathe on it. You can get a lot of damage, and again, you're getting 30 posture poise damage, so you're going to get a lot of posture breaks with this one. It's definitely substantial. It's a solid, well-rounded setup. And next up, Impaling Thrust, which does the same posture damage that Unsheathe does. You're going to get 30 posture damage from this. The advantage here, though, is that it's very, very quick. It can be used kind of rapidly in succession, and it can build up posture damage extremely well. As we go up to the dragon here, who has around 120 posture, 120 poise, so that's a decent amount. That's a little bit on the higher side. We're going to see what we can do with Impaling Thrust, which again does around 30 posture damage or poise damage on each Ash of War hit. And you're going to see here, you can build this one up really fast too, because Impaling Thrust is something that you can do that's very quick. It has a quick animation, so it can build up posture relatively quickly, and it does a good amount of damage too. You're going to see here as he attempts to get away from me, we're building up posture damage rather quickly. Will reset, by the way, after 6 seconds, but in this case, he doesn't get the reset, and we do get the posture break. For Impaling Thrust, after we get the posture break here and we do a substantial amount of damage, you can continue to use it for even more damage. It does a reasonable amount of damage on its own, but the main selling point is you're getting that 30 posture or poise damage with each hit, and you can do it rather quickly. Anyway, I want to mention real quick, if you're not subbed, definitely sub to this channel if you love overpowered PvE builds. We're going to be doing constant Elden Ring content throughout the summer. I cannot wait. It's been so much fun so far, and definitely be sure to join the Discord too, especially if you have any build ideas. You can put them in the channel build suggestion there, and I will get to it within due time. It's been a lot of fun doing those, by the way. Let's get into equipment. Same exact setup as last time. I'm just going to keep this in here, though, for the purpose of the fact that everything's timestamped, so if somebody goes on here and clicks this. Now, as far as this goes, we just had Keen Impaling Thrust instead of Unsheathe, in the same setup with the Dagger, Shard of Alexander, Dragon Crest, Ritual Swords Talisman, and the Faith and Stance Breaking tier. And then for stats, it's the same exact setup. You're going to be primarily a dexterity build. You can throw it on Keen for more damage, and then you can add Blood Flame Blade to this one, and you'll probably even get quicker build up than you would with Unsheathe while doing 30 poise damage or posture damage with each hit. The next one up here that we have is Stamp Upward Cut, which does 33 poise or posture damage upon hit with the Ash of War, and it's a solid one for posture breaks. Interestingly enough, Lion's Claw is the one after this, and that is potentially my favorite one. Not the best one, but my favorite one. But technically speaking, Stamp Upward Cut does 33 and Lion's Claw does 30. So Stamp Upward Cut does do 3 more poise or posture damage on each hit with the Ash of War. By the way, all the clips in this video are from New Game Plus 7. They're just random bosses. I tried to pick bosses that had higher posture, higher poise, just to kind of show it off, like the dragons and stuff who have around 120, since I didn't have any of the late game bosses available and I'm on console. But as far as this goes, Stamp Upward Cut does end up getting a posture break because it's very, very solid for posture damage. Stamp Upward Cut is definitely in there as far as the best posture or poise breaking. We don't really think of it too often. It's not something that we go about and say, oh, we're going to use this, especially since it's pretty much like the stock, I think, thing that's on some of the greatswords and whatnot. I can't remember whether it's on Guts greatsword, but it actually is quite good. Does good damage, has reasonable hyper armor, and you get that 33 poise damage too. In the Magmorum, even with having higher poise in general, it doesn't matter because Stamp Upward Cut's substantial. As I mentioned, it's slightly better than Lion's Claw as long as you're able to keep the pressure on. Even though it's probably not the most fantastic looking Ash of War, it's quite powerful. It does a good amount of damage. And again, 33 poise or posture damage on each hit. That's pretty solid. That's well rounded. It's definitely going to break fairly quickly. Let's get into equipment. For equipment, we have the Great Sword, Guts Great Sword with Stamp Upward Cut on it. Any seal will do. We had the Lendl Knight set, which hits 51 poise. We had Erdtree's Favorite +2, Shard of Alexander, Dragoncrest Great Shield Talisman, Ritual Swords Talisman, and then we had the Faith tier and the Stance Breaking tier. Let's get into stats. For stats, we're mainly invested in strength. This is a high strength build, so you're going to go with heavy affinity on your Guts Greatsword. You're going to get a lot of damage out of this, and again, not the most best looking thing in Stamp Upward Cut, but if you're looking for posture breaks, it definitely is going to easily make this list because it can break fairly quickly. And next up is Lion's Claw. Lion's Claw is great not just for the 30 poise damage it does, that's how much it does upon each hit, but also because it does a substantial amount of regular damage in general. And if you're using something like the Guts Greatsword, you'll have a fairly good amount of range and almost infinite hyper armor as well. There's no way Lion's Claw was not going to make this list. It was always going to make this list, and it is my favorite on the entire list. It really is. Lion's Claw is a ton of fun to use. It does a crazy amount of damage, and it's one of the best Ashes of War in the game for strength builds. On New Game +7 with the Draconic Tree Sentinel here, as you can see, he got Posture Break. His Posture Break's a little bit different than your regular enemies, but there it is. He takes the extra damage as I kind of waited to regen stamina there for a bit, and then we're able to finish him off again fairly quickly because Lion's Claw does so much damage on top of the posture and poise damage it does. We're even going to show another enemy for Lion's Claw because then I'm going to show you my Lion's Claw setup, which is very similar to the one that we just used, but in general, this is something that you can use for the majority of Elden Ring, and it's going to be very easy for you using a setup and build like this. We're going to take on Margit in the Altless Plateau, and Margit in the Altless Plateau is not going to be too bad because he's not going to be able to have, he doesn't have a ton of HP, so he's not going to take that many hits from Lion's Claw, but we should be able to get a posture or poise break. We're going to use the Shackle, of course, test this on him again to show off Lion's Claw, and then go over the setup. Let's see if we can hit him hard here, and I want to mention one more time, by the way, as far as Lion's Claw being on this list, it's definitely my favorite. It's my go-to. I'm probably even going to mark it in the timestamps, and everything will be timestamped, by the way, as my favorite one, but the one after this is definitely going to be the best one, which is one you guys saw earlier this week. We're going to go over that too. Lion's Claw, though, solid for damage, solid for poise damage, and a very well-rounded build. Down goes Margit, and here in a second, we're going to go over stats, build, equipment, everything that you need to know, and it's going to be similar to the last setup. I think basically the same, but since, again, everything's timestamped, we're going to go over it again. Let's go over equipment. For equipment, we have the Guts Greatsword with Lion's Claw +25, preferably any seal will do. We had the Lendl Knight set on, which hits 51 poise, Erdtree's Favorite +2, Shard of Alexander, Dragoncrest Great Shield Talisman, Ritual Swords Talisman, and the Faith tier and Stance Breaking tier. Let's get into stats. Same stats here as Stamp Upward Cut. It's going to be the same basic thing, except you're getting 30 poise here instead of 33 poise damage. But again, you're going to get more damage because Lion's Claw is a fantastic and incredibly powerful Ash of War. And next up is the last one on here. This one has the potential to do 80 poise damage or 80 posture damage in combination. We're going to talk about both of them separately and then both of them together, but this utilizes Square Off in combination with the Glintblade Ash of War, and it can total together when you're combining these two for a very quick first attack for 80 poise damage right off the bat at the beginning of a fight. If you need no further info, by the way, I'll attach this video if you didn't see my weekly video on this. This was one during, I think, the midweek. This was probably Wednesday's video, and yeah, it was pretty awesome. We were able to combine the two rather quickly. Square Off on the charged attack does 40 poise damage, and the Glint Blades do 10 each for a total of 40. Roderick here, I believe, has 105 poise, but it's not going to matter too much here because of what we're using. You're able to switch between these quickly, but Square Off is incredibly underrated, having that charged attack on the Ash of War do 40 poise damage. And then, of course, with the Glint Blades, if all four hit, that can be a total of 80 when you set this up by activating the Glint Blades and then going in for that charged Square Off hit. Build is basically pure punishment. It really is. You're going to go into most boss fights and it's going to make your life a lot easier because you're going to get posture breaks like crazy. It's going to be very, very easy with a setup like this. As you saw here, we already had 2 in the first phase, and I think we have another 2 in the second, or it was 1 in the first phase, 2 in the second. But either way, there's a lot of posture breaks, a lot of critical breaks, and a lot of damage in general without the bosses being able to do too much. It is really incredible. Looking for an easy mode, look no further. This is a setup that's going to be for you. This is something you can use for the late game as well, and you're not going to have too much of a problem. As I mentioned previously, though, Radahn, Elden Beast, and Dragonlord Placidusax all have around 150 poise, which I think is around the most in the game, so they can be a little bit harder to break, and poise does reset after 6 seconds. You can use throwing knives, I think, and such to keep the poise damage up, though. As long as you do that, you're going to make your life really easy with a build and setup like this one. Again, I can't think of anything else in combination that's going to give you 80 posture damage basically upon first entering a boss fight, and then when you set it up properly or use it right, is using this twice with the glint blades and then the Astral Ward charge for square off is going to posture break pretty much everything in the game. Let's get into buffs for this one. Buffing setup, by the way, will pretty much be for the same for all the builds in this video. First things first, we drink our tear, then we're going to cast Golden Vow, then we're going to use Flame Grant Me Strength, then we're going to fill up our FP, and then for this build specifically, we're going to activate the Glint Blades, then we can go right in for that charged square off hit, and as long as everything makes contact, you'll get 80 poise damage. Let's get into equipment. Equipment, we have the Noble Slendered Sword, which is one of the longer straight swords with square off on it. We had Rozier's Rapier with his Ash of War on it for the posture damage. We hit 51 poise, Dagger Talisman, Shard of Alexander, Dragon Crest Great Shield Talisman, Ritual Swords Talisman, and then we have the Faith tier as well as the Stance Breaking tier. And then we're going to get into stats for this one. This is a powerful build. For stats here, the entire setup is built around dexterity, and you're going to get a lot of damage off of square off because square off's charge attack does double the normal charge attack while also getting that 40 poise damage. This is a solid setup for you to use this build, take advantage of posture breaks. Definitely an incredibly powerful one and a really potent build for the late game too, because you're going to need those posture breaks to kind of break up the fight, and we're going to go over stuff one more time with some slides. Amp Upward Cut does 33 poise damage. Lion's Claw does 30 poise damage. Unsheathe also does 30 poise damage. Square Off does 40 poise damage. Glint Blades do 10 each for a total of 40 poise or posture damage. And then Impaling Thrust does 30 poise damage as well. We're going to get into the also great category now. Also great is Prayerful Strike, which does a lot of posture damage. So it's a little bit slow for me. The Dark Moon Greatsword's pretty great, though again, you have to consistently apply pressure. You get it at the mid-range, which is nice, but it can do posture breaking. Earthshaker is a little slow again, but powerful. Giant Hunt pretty much does around the same as Lion's Claw. Then Craigblade was pretty much like number 1 on the list before it was nerfed down to 10% from 20%, so it's just kind of good now. And then the last one I'm going to show here as we do the end clip is Ice Spear does a good amount of posture damage too. You can get some poise breaks with that as well. This video helps, by the way. I hope it gets you all those posture breaks, those poise breaks, and makes life a little bit easier for you. It can be a tough game at times, but when you have stuff like this, you can take advantage a little bit and get those critical breaks, break up the fight, and get some time to enact punishment on the bosses. If you're not on the Discord, definitely be sure to join the Discord. There's over 500 people there now. It's been an awesome growing community. And if you're not subbed and you love overpowered PvE builds, be sure to check out all the awesome builds that are on my channel. Thanks for watching. As always, I will catch you guys there.